everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. And if you're watching this, thank you for watching it. I hope that, or we both hope that you're having a great June so far. There was a few things that happened at the end of May, and we just wanted to come on here to recap what has transpired, especially with AB 659, a big focus for us, and also what action steps you can take from here. We're going to start off with some introductions. My name is Karen. For those of you who don't know me, I'm with Stand Up California, and you can follow us at standup.california on Instagram. And I'm also part of a Voice for Choice Advocacy, the great organization. We give issues a voice in regards to anything that goes into our bodies, whether it be food, air, water, pharmaceuticals. And we have great articles as well that go out weekly to inform you about those issues. I'm also part of COHR, which is the Convention on Health Rights coalition here in California, and we're different organizations that have come together to advocate for issues that are important to us. And that's about it. I'm going to let Kristie go ahead and introduce herself.
Yes, I'm Kristie Sepulveda-Burchett. I'm with Educate Advocate and the Executive Director, and we essentially educate ourselves as parents and caregivers in order to advocate for our families and our children and adults who have special needs and disabilities and exceptional needs. And thank you for being with us today. And we're going to go over some of the changes to AB 659 and where we see this headed and the path forward here.
Yes, and I absolutely am so thankful for Educate Advocate and everything that they do for our children and families with exceptional needs in California. So let's get into the agenda. What are we going to be speaking about today? There are three main topics that we're covering today. So what happens now that the bills have moved on from their house of origin? So we'll touch a little bit on that. What are some key legislation dates coming up? And also we're going to cover AB 659, the Cancer Prevention Act. We'll go over a little bit of the history of the bill, where the bill stands now, and where do we go from here. So I will be sharing my screen here, so bear with me because I've got many windows open on my screen. And I always like to joke around that the way that my computer looks with all of these windows open, that is what my head looks like with so many windows open. Do you ever feel that way, Kristie?
Oh, yes.
All right. So let's begin with what happens now with the bills, and that is part of the California legislation process. I'm also going to remove this little blue dot that follows me everywhere. Okay. So part of the legislation process, we are seeing bills. Let's use AB 659 as an example. AB 659 has moved on from the assembly floor. It has passed with the majority voting aye or yes. And what happens now is it's going to go to the second house. So we have the assembly and we have the Senate. So AB 659 is now going to the Senate. It's currently sitting in the Rules Committee, and what it's waiting for is for assignment. So what committees in the Senate it's going to go to. Kristie will cover a little bit of that later on as we unravel what's going on with AB 659. So what happens is the bill will have to go through all of those committees, and then it goes to the Senate for a full floor vote. If there are any amendments that happen within the Senate committees on its way to the Senate floor, the bill does have to move back to its house of origin for a full final floor vote. So that's what we're seeing right now. So if you were tracking bills in the assembly that were originally authored in the assembly, they're going to go to the Senate. And if you're tracking bills that were authored in the Senate by a senator, they're now going to the assembly. So we wanted to make sure that you guys were up to date on that. And then we're going to go over some legislation dates. So like I said, bear with me. I'm going to pull up something here on my screen. Yes. And we will go over these important dates.
And the committee meetings resumed today, June 5th. And another date of note is July 14th. They have a summer recess. And we want to make sure that everyone is building rapport with your legislators in the district offices, definitely attending some of their summer events so that you can make those connections and that you can have that face-to-face interaction with the legislators. But that's the time to note that they're actually more than likely going to be in the district doing summer events around that time. So these are some of the dates that are of significance as far as the calendar upcoming.
Awesome. And just to add to that, your legislators, your assembly members, your senators, they do want to hear from you. So it's very important for us to build those relationships with our legislators. And now we're going to move on to the reason why we're here this evening, AB 659, the Cancer Prevention Act. So I am going to share something with you guys that maybe we don't really see a lot when we're looking at bills. We do look at the bill text, we look at the bill analysis. Most of the times we look at the bill status to see where it's at. But I learned something new today. The history also goes through all of the movements or actions taken on the bill. So let's talk about AB 659 and everything that's happened with the bill since it was first introduced in February of 2023. So the bill began as a mandate for children going into the 8th grade through the 12th grade in California for public and private schools. It then became a mandate, if you guys remember, it then became a mandate for all higher education enrollees under the age of 26 in California for California state universities, universities of California, and California community colleges. It was then amended and the mandate portion was removed. And this is very important to note because although the mandate portion was removed, we're so thankful for those organizations and individuals that did not remove their opposition. And we'll get into a little bit of that later on as we continue the discussion. After the mandate language of the bill was removed, what was left was a state policy that all under 26 years old are expected to get the HPV vaccine in order to enter the 8th grade in California for public and private schools in all public higher education establishments. The bill was amended on the Assembly floor on May 22nd. Two amendments that most of our core organizations were either asking for or lobbied for, which were the first one, an exemption for homeschoolers, and the second one was a requirement that the notifications would occur within the normal process used at each school, and that they adhere to the current law requiring that the notifications use whatever languages are statistically significant for each school. After all of these amendments, we are still opposing this bill because of the language, and specifically the language expected to get the HPV vaccine. Students in the 6th grade and their parents or guardians will receive a notice that will say your child is expected to get the HPV vaccine to go into the 8th grade. And we know that in many schools, this is already happening. And I want to really get to the bottom of this because this is one of the main reasons why we, and I can speak on Stand Up California, we did not remove our opposition. I also want to highlight the floor vote last week. So it happened on May 31st, the day after Memorial Day, and highlight that Assembly member and co-author Friedman. And if you guys haven't seen the full floor vote, the COHR Convention on Health Rights YouTube channel has it up. Stand Up California, we have it up as well. I would recommend you guys to watch the hearing. Assemblymember Friedman stated, and I will quote, the previous speaker, she was referring to Assemblymember Joe Patterson, mentioned that if a letter is sent home to parents, that the people reading that might think that getting this vaccine, and I think the quote was expected to do, that's exactly right, end quote. And she really specifically made sure that that's exactly right, stood out from this whole quote when she spoke on the assembly floor. To me personally, and I can only speak on behalf of myself and San of California, Kristie, on this portion, but this really brought everything together for me and made me realize the importance of us not removing our opposition, because basically, to me, this means that it's a mandate without mandated language. And I know Kristie will cover a little bit more of this in her time now, and it's really important to note what she's going to explain to us in regards to this. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly, just the floor votes. If you want to speak on that, Kristie, I will put it up on my screen.
Okay. Yeah, so this was the final count here, and we had 59 ayes, 14 noes, and 7 no vote recorded as the final assembly floor count. So there was quite a few of those that are in support, and there was quite a few speakers on the floor that spoke in support of the bill. So yes, it was very interesting. I definitely encourage you to watch. Now I want to get into what happens next with AB 659. So currently, as Karen pointed out, it's in the Rules Committee in the Senate, and likely it will go to Education. Several organizations, including a Voice for Choice Advocacy and California Health Coalition Advocacy, as well as our consortium of organizations through the Convention on Health Rights, are advocating for further amendments to AB 659. I don't know if you can bring up, Karen, that this is a sample of the organizations that continued to oppose AB 659 prior to the Assembly Health Committee and after it was amended by the author. So as you can see here, the Assembly Health Bill analysis listed those that were prior to the last amendments at that time had sent in opposition. But after that point, these were the remaining organizations in the bill analysis at that time in the Assembly Health Committee that did an updated letter for the bill analysis. And that included a Voice for Choice Advocacy, California Health Coalition Advocacy, California Parents Union, Educate Advocate, Take a Stand, Stanislaw, and Vias for Vaccine. I point that out, and it's definitely important for organizations to continue after each time a bill is amended, as it's going to a different committee. Definitely send in a letter of opposition if that's or support if it's another bill that you support. You definitely need to continue, as bills are amended, to continue sending in letters, because otherwise they're not for sure that your organization is in opposition, is continuing to oppose. To them, it's like the amendments made all the difference and you're no longer opposed. So you definitely need to be sending in letters of opposition and continuing to do that. Something that I want people to consider, what is likely to happen if AB 659 is not further amended past where we are now. The language, without being further amended, is really likely to lead to the California Department of Public Health and or the California Department of Education putting out a list of facts, a list of Q&A types of things on their website, possibly California Department of Public Health putting on their Shots for School website in regards to this bill. And based on that language and the facts or the Q&A, the California School Board Association as they do, would send out a template for school board policy to all the school districts in California, where most, if not all, would adopt said language. And so what that would possibly look like is the facts and the Q&A would be based on the language that we have now, is likely to be akin to making this a mandate. So that's what I think is the real drive for the need for further amendments to this bill. And I'd like to go over the amendments that we're asking for as Convention on Health Rights, which, as Karen pointed out, is a consortium of organizations in California that are fighting for the health rights of all of us. And so some of the key things that we are putting down is, first, we would like the sections to be removed in general that have to do with this. If that's not possible, and that's currently, they changed it, but it's sections 4 and 6. If that's not possible, then what we're looking for is to change the words involving expected to recommend or to encourage. And those words were chosen deliberately because during COVID, you know, we learned through the guidance that came out that it was very clear to all that when something is recommended, it means one thing and required means another. And the word expected is very much akin to expected. So required, expected, kind of the same thing. So recommended means it's not mandatory. And everybody understood that, especially when it came to the wearing of masks. And even still in various places, you go to various places. I just went to LabCorp the other day, and on their door was that masks are recommended or strongly recommended. Well, most people understand now that that doesn't mean that they're required. It's just meaning, hey, we recommend that you do this. So we're wanting to change that. The other thing, and that's both for the college age and also those going into 8th grade. The other thing is she made a change in excluding homeschool, which is wonderful, but also just along with previous vaccine bills, we want to exclude those that are in independent study, as well as adding the section as far as IEP students that's familiar in our current health code involving vaccines, that this section doesn't apply to those that are on an IEP. Also, I missed one thing, so sorry, Karen. Above, when notification is going out to the pupils, and that means those that are at the 6th grade level advancing, we would like to remove the part that includes the pupils. That notification is not going to them. And the reason behind that is we don't need a lot of peer pressure. All the things we were concerned about with SB 866 last year, the minor consent bill, we don't need that, the peer pressure, the coercion going on with them getting notification. So we would like that part removed, the pupil. And then the other part that we're trying to add a section, 2 sections here, is at the very top where it says 120336E. Oh, you can scroll down to page 2, Karen. Yes, right there. And it says, this section does not prohibit a pupil who is not fully vaccinated against HPV from being admitted or advancing to the 8th grade level of any private or public elementary or secondary school, or from accessing in-person education. The same thing is for the college level, 120390.6B. This section does not prohibit a student who is not fully vaccinated against HPV from first-time enrollment at an institution of the California State University, the University of California, or the California Community Colleges, or from accessing in-person education. These are really, really important that we get added, you know, if nothing else. And, you know, I think that during the floor session, the author of this bill pointed out that it's a requirement essentially without enforcement. Well, I've given you some reason why I think currently that this would turn into an enforcement, that it would be translated into enforcement. This is a way to guarantee that there would not be enforcement if these sections were added. So we're very hopeful that we can continue to work with the legislator who's the author. I do have to commend her and her office because she is open to meetings. And I also want to give credit to 2 key organizations that have met repeatedly with her office, as well as all the other legislators, which they will continue to do. And that's a Voice for Choice Advocacy and California Health Coalition Advocacy. Those 2 organizations have been on the front lines trying to meet with her and meet with the author and her staff, as well as, like I said, all of the other legislators, and doing the really good work. And I think ultimately, I'm hopeful that we will get there. We will get some resolution that gives students, those both at the college level and those both at the 8th grade level, the protection that is needed. But so that our letter is available on our website, Convention on Health Rights. So please do take a look. Yes. So that's all on that.
That is great, Kristie. And I'm so glad that you are here. You explained that portion so well. And that's why I let you explain that, because basically, and we've spoken about this before, basically all of what we were opposing on SB 866, it feels like it's coming back with this bill. And just to reiterate how thankful I personally am for those organizations and individuals that haven't removed their opposition. They know how important it is to continue to oppose this bill. And a huge shout out again to A Voice for Choice Advocacy, Christina, and our legislative director. I know that they've personally, from what I've seen, they've been doing an amazing job. I know that CHCA has also been hard at work at the Capitol, meeting with their staff. And we will continue to oppose and bring you guys updates. So if there's any updates that we have, look out for those emails from A Voice for Choice Advocacy, from CHCA. Go to the COHR YouTube channel where you'll find videos like this. Kristie and I will continue to update you guys on what the call to action is and why it's important to continue to oppose AB 659. Now to wrap up, that felt like it went by so fast. We're gonna end on I wanted to say a positive note, but on a note where we speak about other bills that we are tracking. Educate Advocate has amazing bills that they are sponsoring this legislative session. But from Stand Up California, on our side, we are keeping an eye on Assembly Bill 665 by Assemblymember Wendy Carrillo, and that is minors' consent to mental health services. And I do want to point out that it is now going to be heard in the Senate Judiciary Committee on June 13th. What we are asking for you to do is to submit your letter of opposition, whether it's as an individual or on behalf of an organization, to please submit your letter of opposition through the Legislation Advocates portal. And now we continue to have conversations with the bill author and continue to follow up with her office in regards to amendments that we have proposed. And what I'm going to do now is pull up some great news. So we are going to end in a positive note because Kristie will highlight some of the bills that they are keeping an eye on this legislative session, which is bills that they have sponsored.
Yes. You just go to the exceptional needs page on there.
Where am I at?
For persons with exceptional needs.
Can I read?
Underneath wandering, eloping, persons with exceptional needs.
On the blue menu, right?
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. I know there's a ton of menu items.
which is great. You guys make sure that if you have or if you know families with exceptional needs who need resources, that you go on educateadvocate.com. I usually end with this, but it's important to note as we're looking at it right now, how many resources they have listed on their website, and it's free. It's absolutely free. If you do need to get in contact with any of the Educate Advocate members, you can do so, but there's so many free resources on there for families.
Yes. So these are all of our videos up on YouTube for our 3 bills that we are the sponsors of this year. And if you just scroll down just a little bit, right there is the 3 bills. It gives a little bit of a summary of AB 611, AB 1466, and SB 445. Great news is that they all passed out of their House of Origin. They are all over on the other side in the second House. And one of our bills, AB 611, will be heard this week on Wednesday, the 7th. So yeah, I mean, they have widespread support, and we're very proud of them. A couple of these bills we had tried to get introduced, and they were going through the process in early 2020. And then when COVID happened, all the bills were dropped off at that time. So these bills really weren't at the forefront. And even the first couple of years back in the legislative session, they weren't really a priority at that time as far as the subject matter. But now that things are we're back in the groove a little bit here. They are important. So we're putting them forward, and we were very happy that we got a legislator to agree to introduce them, and that's Akilah Weber in the Assembly. The Senator Portantino bill involving IEP translation services. He has attempted, and another legislator attempted to introduce this bill. It's been vetoed a few times, one by Newsom. So we're hoping for better things this year. We have a really good argument of why it should be passed. So we're hoping that we're able to get it across the finish line this year. So great news. Just if you can support these bills, you don't have to have a child in an IEP in order to support these bills. You can still send a letter of support, and it's always a good thing to have some things under your belt that are actually supporting bills rather than always opposing bills. You know, that's a way to increase your relationship with legislators as well. To have that have that common ground, to be there with common ground, which is what you need with legislators more than anything else, so that we can push back on the things that we don't like, but, find things that we do like, and we can say, hey, we appreciate you for voting for this, and this is a good thing. So, yeah.
I appreciate that. And that is a very important highlight, because the more you build rapport with legislators, especially supporting their bills, the more it opens the door for you to be able to speak about bills that you're opposing, a future vote on a bill that we need to oppose. So that is great. And on a Voice for Choice advocacy side, we do have SB 499, the Cool Schools Act, which mitigates extreme heat and air pollution in schools. If you guys would like to learn more about that, please visit avoiceforchoiceadvocacy.org. And we're gonna just say again that we're so thankful that you guys were here with us tonight, listening to what we have to say. We both believe, and COHR believes, that we need to ensure that we give out succinct information to our advocates that are listening, that are doing the boots on the ground work by meeting with your legislators, by submitting those position letters. And we're so thankful for each and every one of you guys, because you are what's moving the needle with bills like AB 659. If you would like to learn more about Educate Advocate, make sure that you visit their website, educateadvocate.ca.gov, or you can find them on Instagram, Educate Advocate, right, Kristie? Just one word. And if you would like to learn more about Stand Up California, or join us for our events and everything that we've got going on, feel free to visit standupcalifornia.com or visit us on Instagram, standup.california. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day and week, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.